Right. All right. Well, now is the time we're going to turn it over to our presenter. Who is introducing her? Who is introducing Linda? Is that you, Greg? No, it's Karen. Karen, are you introducing her?
I think Greg has had the most recent contact with her. I've been trying to reach her, but Greg made the connection. So Greg.
Well, I can do it too.
Good. Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we did get the bio out on Linda, and I've seen her speak a couple times. It's quite interesting, and we are in a situation now where some of you might have seen that the recycling industry is struggling a bit, and so they've done some creative things, and actually I hope when she came and spoke to my board a couple of years ago, she brought some really cool products. I wish we could do this in person. But I got a bamboo toothbrush and some other things that were important. So without giving too much away of her presentation, it's not all about recycling. It's about waste reduction, all that good stuff. And this is, some of you might remember, my first career was in recycling and environmental stuff. And so this is like deja vu all over again for me. So, but if you didn't get a chance to read her bio, check it out. That was in Maggie's email. And in addition to being the recycling and source reduction, which is an old term, queen, she's also an excellent artist. So anyway, enough on that. I'll turn it over to Linda.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure to give a presentation. It's and a surprise too that I'd be invited to come and present at a time when people are eating, to talk about garbage and waste. But it is a worthy subject, and I've been doing this for maybe about 25 years. So it's hard to kind of encapsulate everything in a short presentation. So I'm going to try and give a broad brush approach of what, the waste industry. And I am, like Greg said, I'm very sorry that we're not together, because I would be giving you guys giveaways for things to set you off into a zero waste reduction lifestyle. Anyway, but here, let me get started. First of all, let's go to the second slide. And I just want to kind of outline where I'm going to go with the presentation. I'm going to give a little bit of an idea of who Recology is, the kind of services that we provide. Next. And I want to talk about the local partners and how decisions are made in the county. I think that that's something that people get confused around a lot here, and it's good to know, who does what. And then I'll get into the recycling and the processing and the marketing and of recycling in the area, and then talk a little bit about what happened to the CRV program. That's your cash for cans, the bottle bill kind of things, and what's going to be happening in the future. Next slide, please. So first of all, Recology is 100% employee owned. I don't think people realize that we're not traded on the stock exchange. We are a larger company, but the leadership of this company had always wanted to see that its employees had part ownership of the company. We're big supporters of the middle class and the tenets of the United States to be, to hold fast to wanting to people to be able to be owners of companies and small business owners. But this is how we help ensure that in a larger company. We do that provide that for 140 communities where there's 40 operations where we operate. And it probably primarily environmental service provider. So we're trying to reframe ourselves as an integrated resource recovery company rather than a garbage company. We've processed about 2.8 million tons per year of materials of that in our communities, 600,000 tons of recycling, and 800,000 tons of composting. And we're hoping to get that number up in the future. Here locally, the next slide, we have 129 employees who are employee owners, and we operate 7 collection contracts, otherwise known as franchise agreements. That's where the contracts that we hold to pick up the garbage at the curbside. We're operating 2 transfer stations, one in Fortuna, which is owned by Recology, one in Redway Transfer Station, which is owned by the county, and we operate through a contract. And we also operate through a contract 6 container sites out throughout, they're pretty much out in the sticks in the county where people have opportunities to bring their garbage. They're pretty much like a great big debris box transfer station. And we are operating the recycling processing facility out here on the Samoa Peninsula that I'm gonna probably want to say right now, had it not been Arcata Community Resource Recycling, ACRC, I'll go back to say, we wouldn't have been able to do that out here. So it's a very fortunate thing that, that this place existed prior to our ownership. So first, let me go to the next slide. How are decisions made around waste in this community? And I think a lot of times people think that the directions where decisions are made come from Recology. And we're part of the process, but we don't come in until later on. Cities and counties are mainly responsible through a law called AB 939 to look at, to establish goals and strategies to manage materials in their communities. This is a mandate that was handed down in the state a couple of decades ago. And what they do is they form this, this entity that's called the Solid Waste Local Task Force, which is made up of individuals who are appointed to those positions by city managers and other leadership in the county to sit on this board. And when they see that other AB 939 goals and other solid waste initiatives that are passed through the state or county, they look and they try to find ways together to find strategies to address those. And then individually in the counties and the cities, then once they find what they're going to do, then they work with people like us, and they contract with the franchise haulers to do collection systems, or maybe they put in the waste that's collected in these areas into one big bulk of material, which they ask the Humboldt Waste Management Authority, which is a joint powers authority, that's another player in this community, to represent them in securing solid waste disposal contracts, maybe transportation to the landfill. And they also do planning for other diversion programs. So that's pretty much how much it works. So the next slide is a picture of all of us here at the recycling facility. So as I said before, we administer curbside collection and trash recycling services through agreements. And these are often long-term agreements that we sit down with our communities to try to figure out things like, what do you want? What's going to be part of the contract? And we give them costs for that. I don't think that most people are aware that in some of our communities, we only are able to get rate recovery one time a year. With the county entities and some of the cities, we get that the rate increases are based on any kind of increases that are passed through, like for disposal, or consumer price index increases, so that you can keep up with other costs. In the case of the city and Arcata, we are only allowed, we come through and we prove that what we're doing costs what it does, and then we're allowed to get a 10% margin. Just to give you an idea, a large portion of what goes into your collection rates is for disposal. About 40% of it is disposal. So we have to come up with the rest of it for paying for the cans, the trucks, the employee costs, and then we may be getting between 10 and 20% a margin on it. So we have to live with it if that's what we came with, and we are only allowed to give a rate increase one time a year. So all of our materials, like I said earlier, is directed from the communities to the Hawthorne Street Transfer Station, which is run by the Humboldt Waste Management Authority, where we have no choice but to do that under our contracts with the city. And likewise, the curbside recycling in most of the communities is also under an agreement with the Waste Authority to take it over here to the Samoa Resource Recovery Center. Next, please. And we entered into that agreement in 2018. That started in September 5th, which was the day after the current agreement that the county had with another company outside of the area, which was Solid Waste of Willits. Materials were sent down to Willits that was recycling from and transferred from the Waste Authority down there for, I don't know, a period of few years. And they were very eager to get out of that agreement because around this time, there has been a big crash in the recycling markets. And they were locked into an agreement where they had to pay the community $15 a ton when it was actually costing them a lot more to pick it up and process it. So what really goes into the cost of recycling, next slide, please, is, oh, I think we went a little bit, one more, please. The quality of the material, that's what our recycling looks like when it comes out of the truck. What the markets are paying for that material and the quantity of it. So those are the three things that go into the cost of recycling. So let me give you the next page. I know it's a lot of lines in here, but this is what our typical audits of the material that comes in here, where we report to the Waste Authority in our jurisdictions periodically, monthly, as often as monthly, of what is made up of the recycling that's in there. And I've highlighted some of the stuff that is that people ask about a lot. And you'll see that the biggest proportion of the material that comes in is fiber. So OCC is basically means old cardboard, corrugated cardboard. So those are cardboard boxes and paper. So about 53% of that material is what that is, and that becomes important here in a minute. Glass, and this is all done by weight, is about 15%. Aluminum cans and number one PET I called out because people think that we're making a lot of money and that there's a lot of money from CRV that comes back to us from the state when they put the materials in there. And you can see that it's only maybe about 4% of the weight in there is CRV material. And we only get a little small portion of that as a handling feedback when we report it to the state. But look down at the very bottom, 18.66% of the material at this reporting time was trash. People are putting a lot of garbage in the recycling, and I'm not talking things where people are confused about whether or not something is recyclable or not, like a plastic. This is actual garbage, and it is a big problem, and it amplifies. So if you look at the next slide, we've been tracking what the garbage is of the contamination of the material by percent, by origin, and you can see, it's we can't place blame on one kind of area if we're talking about blaming. This is something where we're going to need a community effort to be able to address. Everyone is contributing equally to the problem. This is what's been happening since that reporting period. So we're up to 22, 23, 20, and last month we were 24%. Next slide, please. So this is just a photograph of just the material that was pulled out of the recycling on August 28th, 2020. These are what we call tanglers. This is just only one type of contamination. So you see a lot of wire, tents, lawn chairs, things like that. We're really set up to take care of containers and not this kind of material, even though some of that stuff might be considered recycling. It's not something that we can handle through our system. It causes problems. Next, please. But the next thing is really what we truly have a problem with is people not cleaning out containers or throwing in plastic containers with materials still in there. So this is common, and I show this picture a lot, but I could go out there right now and find exactly the same thing. There's people that throw out the recyclable bottles that if they would just simply clean out, or maybe even take some of that material to a household hazardous waste facility, they'd be able to get rid of it responsibly. But that's, you know, that not only fouls other materials, but it also puts our employees at risk. Next, please. So this is like something that just came out that one day. You know, we find guns, bullets, and big old rounds of Madrone. And, you know, again, you know, they find themselves somehow in a recycling container, and it does cause problems and stops the line. But it is something that is of a concern. So next slide, please. So incoming trash versus outgoing residual. So anytime there's trash that comes in from the curbside, it gets amplified. And it does get passed on to the cost at your curbside. When we based our fee for recycling processing, our assumption was that it would be about 15% garbage coming in. Well, the community goal was like, we really want to see it at 8%. And so we had to go back and forth with that. And you see, and I said earlier, it's about 18.66%, and it's even going up higher. So what's going to happen every time we come back to the Waste Authority, where we are able to adjust our rates? Right now, they're covering the 15% residual disposal costs. It's coming out of, they're paying that bill, but we're covering the difference between that 15 and almost 19% garbage coming in. So next time we come in for a rate review, we're going to add that on to people's rates if we can't get the number down. So when I was talking about when it's incoming, it gets mixed up with other stuff and fouls the material to the point that we have to add, do a factor to what we're charging to the member agencies and agencies by 1.33. It's very numeric and scientific how we do that. But it does damage the quality of materials, and it makes it hard to market it. The next slide. So the big thing about recycling is you have to have a place to sell it if it's recyclable. That's the key thing. And in 2017, and even before that, China, we had sent most of our recycling to China. I mean, as a country, and there was about 30 to 40% of the material that was going to them was garbage. It was something that they couldn't use. So basically what we were doing was marginalizing that company by, you know, saving ourselves some money for disposal costs and sending it all to China. And, you know, shipping costs are huge. And then they would be stuck with the garbage that was coming from the United States. So they put us on notice saying, hey, you know, your recycling is just trash, so we're going to stop taking it. And you know, everyone was put on notice. I don't think that the information got out to folks very well. And so they said, well, 2018, which happened to coincide with when Recology took over the recycling processing agreement in Humboldt County, they said, we're not taking your stuff anymore unless it's like less than half of 1% contamination. And we're going to stop taking a bunch of plastics, several types of plastics, and, you know, and we're going to aggressively enforce this. If we find that you're shipping it to us, you're going to be blackballed for the rest of your lives. You know, we'll not be able to come out here to bring your material to us. You're just going to be on our bad list. So, so that had a huge impact on the market. Next slide, please. Which made the commodities go down. And other countries went, so we started in the United States finding other destinations for the materials. And they too were saying, we're not going to take that trash either. So they followed China's example and started banning some of the imports of some of the material based on quality. Recently, we've been able to get some fiber destinations for OCC and paper reopening in the United States. But since we've been taking this stuff to China, there was no incentive for businesses to open or to operate in the United States that would close the circle with recycling here. So so during that time, you know, the prices are continuing to be depressed. Next slide. So what this has had has been a huge impact on some commodities. So you're seeing like this mixed paper, for instance, and this is what happened in 2008. We were getting $105 a ton. And remember, that's about 53% of what we have in the recycling. And then all of a sudden it went down to $2.50 a ton. So it was a huge impact on that. And paper, frankly, really isn't that hard to recycle. We don't have mills here to do that, to make pulp. So it takes 22 tons to ship that out of Humboldt County. 22 tons. So we were getting $44 for the material, but paying $1,500 to ship it out. And that was not even including the employee cost to sort that from the other materials on the line. So what a mess. Anyway, it has since improved, and since we've been able to put in new paper cleaning systems into the sort line, we're now back up to around $100 a ton. So it's helpful, but it hasn't come without a cost. So locally, as I said before, we try to get the message out as best we can to people about what they can do to keep the recycling clean. But like I said earlier, there's in the four corners of our contracts with the collection agreements and with the recycling processing agreement, there isn't room in those contracts to pay for messaging very much. And there isn't really a concerted community effort to come out with unified messaging. So what you're seeing coming from Recology is limited for that reason. So what we try to do is when people are new users or they sign up for service, we give them some information, and we'll even give that to people if they request it, if they want to contact us. Probably best right now by email. We'll send you some information. And we also have this website that's called whatbin.com on the recology.com website, or you can even look it up, whatbin.com, and it has 3 totes represented on it. And you can say, what do I do with aluminum foil? And for instance, you type that in and it will say, oh, well, if it's clean, you can put it in the recycling. If you've got food all over it, then you need to put it in the garbage. We also have this tag system that some of you may have seen or encountered. They're called oopsie tags. They just recently have been updated by the city of Eureka and are being used in the city of Arcata right now. And so we try to communicate that way when we're trying to tell people things that shouldn't be in the recycling. It's just a form of communicating, and we do track, where oopsies are occurring, so that we can further target information to certain areas. But in general, we want to put out that we want people to put recycling in that's clean and dry, empty containers, no bagged recycling, no loose plastic bags, textiles, or styrofoam. Yeah, so that's what it is. And textiles meaning clothing or carpet. We have developed a new lid. This is not a sticker. This is an embossed on the lids, and we're changing them out on the cans as we can, as cans are needing repairs, or as we are ordering new cans to replace those that are coming out of the system. So these are embossments that we're changing them out slowly, but there's not money to do it for everyone yet. Next, so what more can be done? Well, like I said earlier, we need to have locally a funded, coordinated, consistent messaging and outreach that is supported by all the communities. And we really need to get back to the zero waste concept, which is what makes me sad, that what Greg said earlier, that I don't get to see you and show you, bamboo toothbrushes and tubeless toothpaste, and talk about, how each one of us use 880 bottles of plastic shampoo in our lifetimes, those kind of things. We need to really, as consumers, work toward not creating waste and get rid of plastic. So we need to have the communities work with Recology and the Waste Authority to support procedures to address the problem. Everyone needs to do that. And we're going to need everyone together to do that, so that we can develop more and better resources, and to encourage local manufacturing to make better packaging choices. That's something that I spoke with Greg's group about when I was showing people packaging. It really is an opportunity with Humboldt Made to be able to look at, like, I noticed that a lot of times you'll see organic products made in Humboldt County. And then the thing that makes me sad is that then they get packaged in plastic, which kind of takes away, in my mind, you know, the organicness of the product, because you oftentimes can't do anything with the plastic. But again, who's going to do it and how's it going to be funded? So bigger picture, though, with the state of California and with the United States is we really need to develop in the United States a circular economy around recycling and waste. And it will support, you know, the plastics. There was 2 bills that were out there before the end of the last state legislative session that were there that were around circular economy and specifically address plastics. They failed in one of them by only 4 votes. Those are the things that are really going to fix this problem. There is an initiative that was sponsored by Recology and others that we're putting on the 2022 ballot that is in support of a plastics initiative to stop this unbridled production of plastics that's giving us all problems, and to make producer responsibility there. And so that will be coming up in 2022. I don't know if I have time, do I, to talk about CRV, or do you want me to just answer questions? I could do that way, since I'm kind of going.
Yeah, we are over time, but you know, nobody here, I mean, I think it'd be nice to continue, and those people are willing to stay and want to stay, because I think this is important for people to hear. So I'll officially give you permission to leave if you need to, but we're going to, not you, Linda, you're staying.
I am.
Everybody else, and then we'll continue on to hear the rest of this, because I think it's important. I think people are interested.
Yeah, I think the thing with CRV, it is related to recycling, but it is not the all end all. It has everything to do with recycling. California Redemption has been in trouble for a very, very, very long time. Let's go on to the next slide. As part of the bottle bill. So it initially was put together with the Beverage Container and Litter Act in 1986. It's a really old bill that I think no one has the guts to really address, is basically the best way I'm going to say it, to do something different about it. And what it is that the people who, the distributors, they're charged this fee on the bottles that they make, of the containers that are deemed to have CRV on them, and they pay it to the state. And then when they sell their product to grocery stores, they get their nickel back from the grocery stores or the retail establishments. So that's how they get that. So what it was initially intended to do was to encourage consumers to recycle beverage containers. And it was supposed to be done at the point of purchase. It was never the idea as people to be driving these things around all over the place to get redemption at redemption sites. The thought was that people would go, you're going to the grocery store anyway, so just take your bottles back and then buy some new ones. That's what the idea was. So, and then you can get your money back, and that's what happened. But in the meantime, there was also ability in this bill for people to have, to open up certified redemption centers. And when the commodities market was paying really well for things like aluminum and plastic and glass, people were able to make ends meet, pay their employees and do this. So you would see places like Ming's and all these other places locally, General Recycling, open up. Redwood Acres have these places and be able to operate, a certified redemption center. Well, a couple of years ago, a lot of them closed, which only left Humboldt Waste Management Authority, 2 sites by Recology down, one in Redway and one in Fortuna, and then Humboldt Sanitation. So in order for us to be able to recoup our costs, we would depend on the markets to pay, to be able to pay for the employee fees and the transportation out of that and the equipment to do it. But as I said earlier, the market has severely dropped. I'll tell you just an example, it takes 32 aluminum cans to make a pound. So when we're paying out to redemption, if you have a redemption center to a person, you're paying $1.65 to them, to that person for that pound. It's a straight transaction. We're basically loaning that money. We're giving that money to the user of that system, and then going back to the state to get our money back. So there's several months of delay in that. And then in order to pay for the employee and all the other overhead costs, right now, aluminum is paying 40 cents a pound. So you only have 40 cents left to pay for the employee and everything else you have to do. So these centers that have been co-located with garbage companies have been subsidized heavily by your solid waste fees for a long time. That's the only reason why they've been able to remain open. I'll tell you, in Fortuna, I did sort of a back of the napkin kind of calculation to see how much it was costing us to operate in the red. We were $367,000 a year. So it just got to the point with COVID, we had to say, here's the next slide. We had to say, you know, we can't ensure social distancing and provide the service and lose money, and we don't have employees. We don't have a workforce. You know, nobody's applying for jobs. Don't even have the people to do it and to deal with the traffic. So we closed. And I will tell you, in the beginning of COVID, for the first 2 or 3 months, the places where we were selling our material as scrap weren't even taking it from buyback facilities. They didn't want to touch it for their own, so that they could protect the health of their own employees. So they all dried up, and we were given some time to from the state to not have be open and to remain certified. But then that was through a governor's order, and it lapsed in August 21st. The day after that, the state of California wrote all of us and said, you open the way that you would opened initially, or you're going to face fines. And we just couldn't see how we could do that and lose money. So we all closed. In there, you can see right now that there's the Waste Authority is reporting that they're losing about $673 a year. So, and that's made up of by placing about $9.60 a ton on your garbage fees. So it's a shell game to be able to afford to have that service. I'll tell you just really quickly that we had been working really hard with the Waste Authority and Humboldt Sanitation to try to find something to bridge the community so that they would still have recycling, the ability to get buyback, and tried to work with the state to see if there was something they could do to relax some of the operational restrictions that they were giving us, and we were not able to get that go through. Right now, we are applying for a competitive grant to do a pilot program. There's 3 other entities that are going after the same $1 million. If we're successful, we'll be bringing something back, but it doesn't look like it will be coming before sometime next year. It will be a while before something comes back. But in the meantime, people can still put those materials in their blue bin, and it will go to market. It will get recycled. It's just that we don't have the ability to give people their money back through the buyback system. So there's that. Any questions? I'm usually more interesting when I'm in person.
Linda,
It's hard to see.
is this a California problem only, or is it across the country?
Well, the commodity market is for all recycling is across the country, and it's global. But the CRV issue is California. That's California redemption value. Oregon has its own thing going on, and looks like California is trying to look at revising the bottle bill to look more like Oregon. But like I said, it's going to take a lot of guts to do that, for someone to take that on. It's going to be a legislative change. And I'll tell you, the plastics industry, which is also the oil industry, is fighting very hard against it.
Thank you, Linda. I know that this is, you know, people don't want to think about this, but when we think about it, we see that it's a huge problem, and it only can be fixed by part of the solution is all of us and how we consume and what we consume, and realizing that single-use plastic has put us into a really bad situation, so I appreciate you coming and telling us, and we, you know, whatever it is that we need to learn to do, you know, we need to learn it. And I'm always shocked to see what people put in recycling. So yeah, are there any other questions? We've gone, of course, way over, but you all stayed because you wanted to. So we're going to take a few more questions.
Linda,
Yeah.
I have a question. How much voluntary recycling of plastic bottles, of cans, of glass comes into your facility weekly?
Okay, so through the curbside, I can tell you how much comes in annually. Curbside collected in the blue can is about 12,000 tons a year. For the people who go to redeem materials and take their own recycling, like say to the waste authority, they contribute about 1,000 tons a year. It's not much. So you see 1,000 tons a year, and they've got 5 or 6 employees administering that. That's a big cost just for that amount of material.
I'm just brainstorming here with you.
Okay.
You know, I moved up here just under 2 years ago from Southern California, and we were always, you know, collecting our cans and our bottles and separately. And in Garden Grove, where I lived, there were separate containers for all of the different kinds of things, for green waste, for trash, and then recyclables. So the company that had the contract in the city to pick all of the stuff up was benefiting from all of that recycled materials. You just put your stuff in there, okay?
Well, they weren't benefiting,
And
they were paying.
I'm up here in McKinleyville, and I drink Diet Pepsi or Diet Coke, and I've collected all my cans, and there's no more redeemable. You know, I mean, I can't get my money back, basically, is my thought right now. So I want to take it somewhere and just, you know, donate it. And I'm wondering if Rotary as an organization might be able to do something, organize something to do that kind of thing. So the general public would have a place where they would, you know, just advertise maybe, this is where you bring your cans, your bottles, and your plastic.
There isn't money for it.
There's no money for it. Yeah, that's the thing, is that the net of that, I know it looks like it's a benefit, but as I said earlier, we have plus and minus columns when all collection companies do this, and also with our rates. There are plus and minus columns. So anything that's a plus, like the CRV, that goes against people's garbage rates. You still end up with a huge minus after the redemption has come in. It has not been a money-making thing for a very long time. In the last, I don't know, the last 5 years and the last decade, more than half of the recyclers, the redemption sites have closed because of that. It is just not. It is not a money-making thing. That's why we're looking for grant funding to help bridge this. Until the state can, what really needs to happen is this state needs to adopt extended producer responsibility, where the people who are making the containers are responsible for ensuring that these containers are recyclable. Right now, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll just pass along the cost of that, you know, like Pepsi or Coke. They'll pass along the.
But but hey, I mean, if we're buying a product, they always are going to put the cost of the product in the product. And so right now we think that cost is in there, but it's not. And then we're throwing things out that are just not going, or we think we're recycling when really we're sorting our garbage, and then it all goes into garbage again. A lot of it anyway. This is a great topic. I know a lot of us are really concerned about it. And you know, certainly, Linda, when you talk about messaging and how to get messaging out, you know, that is something I think that we could help, you know, when there is messaging to try to get people to understand this. You know, the best thing we all can do is be up to speed in what that message is. So when people start doing things that don't make sense, although I find that sometimes recycling is almost like religion or politics. And if you let someone know they're recycling wrong, they actually get mad at you, which is weird. But anyway, we can all just do what we can do. And I think it starts with reduce. That's the starting point. And that whole slogan, reduce, reuse, and recycle, everyone seems to think, oh, recycle, as if those three things are equal. And they're not. It's recycle is like the last resort. If you have to buy it and you can't reuse it, then you recycle it. But we're all thinking, oh, I just recycle, and that's the answer. And I think it's a mind shift that has to happen. And that's what's not happening right now, is people realizing that recycle is, you lose when all you're doing is recycling.
Yeah, eventually it's going to be trash.
Yes.
It's you know, it's and I always tell people, I wish it would be my dying wish is if recycling, if we could get to the point where recycling wasn't the way to deal with this material. Waste is zero. Not reducing, you know, our footprint as consumers is huge. It's kind of I always think about, you know, the packaging of things is really, to us, you know, the packaging has become so, it's almost like a reflection of ourselves sometimes, you know, when you see how, you know, as how humans, our self-esteem is, it seems to mean more than what's inside. We should be buying what's inside. You know, we don't need that packaging to get us to buy that, and that useless packaging. You know, that's what I want to see us do. So that's it. So if you can find something that plastic is evil, I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Stay
away from plastic.
Thank you, Linda. We really appreciate your dedication to this this work. It's your life's work, and it's so important. And we appreciate. We are glad we have you there. And thank you so much for coming. I don't know if you guys can see my screen. I don't know if you can see Henry, the giant fish. Can you see him? Mm-hmm. He's made out of things that they found. And there's a lot of art being made with recycled things, but it'd be better if there are fewer things that were out there like that. So, but at least Henry's there. So everybody have a good week. Linda, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Thank you everybody for staying on, and have a good weekend, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.